Hey guys, it's Trey back again with another video. And in today's video, we're going to do a fun project. So we're just going to go ahead and create Tic Tac Toe. We're going to do it two ways though. In this video here, we're just going to do it on the as a console application. And then in the second version, which will be a separate video, we're going to go ahead and actually create like a web page that allows you to play Tic Tac Toe. So we're not going to use any frameworks for that, so no React or anything. We're just going to do regular HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and create it that way. And we'll use the code from this first section, and we'll kind of break it up into different pieces so that we can have like an API that we can call as like a back end or whatever. And yeah, we'll have a little fun. And if you have like a project that you need to get done for school or something like that, yeah, you can definitely take this and use it. I don't care. Do whatever you want with it. But the first thing we want to do is actually create a node project. So you want to open your terminal. You can do this in VS Code by hitting Control and the tilde key. That is the key that is underneath your escape button. So if you look at your escape button and look down, it's that key, that first key you reach. All right. And then when you open that, we're going to type in npm init-y. This will set up our node project. And as you can see, we have our package.json file that just got created. And this will hold our packages and stuff. But at this moment, we don't need to install any packages. The package that we're going to use is included with Node, so you don't need to do that. So right now, we're just going to go ahead and create our file that we're going to run our console application from. All right. So I'm going to create it now. I'm going to call it game.js. So I'll type touch.game.js. All right. And then we have our game.js file. You can also come up here and just click this little new file icon and type in game.js. If you're not comfortable with the command line. All right. So we're going to open this file and we're going to start coding. So the first thing I want to do is import the one package that I said we're going to need. And it is called readline, and this is what we're going to use to get the input from the user. So we're going to say const readline, and we're going to require node : readline. All right, and that will pull in our readline for us. Next, I want to set up a couple of variables that will allow us to keep track of the game. So, you know, the state of the game. So which places have already been taken and whose turn it is and stuff like that. All right. So the first thing I'm going to set up is the turn. So I'll say is X turn, and I'll just set it to true. So what this is going to keep track of is if it's X's turn to go. If it's X's turn to go, this will be true. If it's not, if it's O's turn, then this will be false. Since there's only 2 players, we can use this Boolean value. All right. So the next thing I want to set up is the board. And the board is going to be where we keep track of, you know, who went where's X's and where are the O's at. All right. So it's just going to be an array of 9 values since Tic Tac Toe only has 9 values that you can pick from. So we'll just set that up. So I'll be using strings here, and you know, we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So basically what this represents is the numbers. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9. So, you know, as a tic tac board goes, this is how it looks. And then you can like select X to go here, and then O can select to go here, and everything like that. And then we'll have an algorithm that checks after every turn if that person has 1 or not. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to like start here, and it'll say, okay, X, and then it'll check this way. And if that's it, then it'll be good. If this is it, you know, and it's just gonna go this way, and then it'll check down and it'll check diagonal. So that's how we're gonna work it. I'll explain it as we go as well. Yeah. So these first 3 is this top row, second 3 is the middle row, and the third 3 is the bottom row. All right, and that's how we're gonna set it up. All right. So now that we have that, we need to go ahead and set up our interface so that we can get our input from our user. So this read line is how we're gonna do that. So we're gonna say const r1 equals read line dot create interface. So this is gonna be our interface, and then we have to set up some properties in here. basically where we want our input to come from and where we want our output to go. So we're going to say input, and then we'll say process.stdin. So we're going to get our input from our keyboard. That's what process.stdin is. And then we'll say output, process.stdout, and this will be our console window. So basically our terminal window. All right. That's where we're going to get our input from, where we're going to put our output to, and we have set up our interface. The next thing I want to do is set up a function that we're going to call when the code starts up. Okay, so it's going to be called start. I'm going to call the function here so that I know it gets called when we actually run this program. And then I'm going to create the function right up under it. So we'll say function start, doesn't take any parameters. There we go. All right, so now we have our start function. And one thing I did forget is this needs to be async, because we are going to need to await for this this interface to actually wait for the read to come through. Okay, so if you're not familiar with async, await, and promises and things like that, you probably should watch a video or read up about that, and then come back here, because we're going to be using them when we use this interface here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off. The first thing I want to do is create our loop. Because we're going to need to run the same code over and over again for each turn, I'm just going to create a loop that never ends. And then the way we'll quit is we'll take input from the user. Like if they type the letter Q, then we'll quit. Okay. So right now we're going to create this loop, and we're going to go ahead, and the first thing we're going to do inside of this loop is draw the board. Okay. So when we draw the board, we're basically just going to draw what I was showing earlier with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. And we're going to draw in that order. I have a function that I've already written to do this, and it already has everything formatted and everything. So I'm not going to go over it, because I think it'll just confuse you. Like, it's hard for me to explain what's actually happening, and it really just draws it. So really, if you want to follow along, I'm going to go ahead and I'll have a GitHub link that you can go to if you want to just go copy the code, or I'm going to paste it in here, and I'll leave the video right here over it so you can see it. You can pause and, write it down how I got it. All this is going to do is draw the numbers the way I showed you earlier, where it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then it has like a little fancy box around it. That's really it. It's just going to look like Tic Tac Toe. And that's what this function does. After we draw the board will get drawn on the screen, and it'll show you who's where the X's are, where the O's are, and which ones are still available. The next thing I want to do is grab which player's turn it is. Okay, so we have this is X turn, but this is just a Boolean value. I actually want to grab if it's an X or an O. So I'm going to say const player, and then we'll say is X turn. And I'm going to use the ternary operator here. And what this is going to allow me to do is, if this is true, it's going to set a value. And if it's false, it'll set a different value. So if it's true, if it is X's turn, I want to set the player value to X. And if it's false, I want to set the player value to O. Okay. And that will get us our player. All right. And then the next thing I want to do is take the input from the user. So now we have the board drawn so the user can see what's there and where they want to go. I know which player it is, and now we can take in the input. So I'm going to say let input. All right. And this is going to be where we store our input once we validate it. And then here we're going to actually get the input from the user. So I'm going to say const val is equal to await, because we're going to need to wait for this. And then we're going to create a new promise, which is going to hold the value when the user actually types it in. All right. So we're going to say resolve here as the parameter for this function. And then we'll go r1.question. And this is where we're using our actual interface. And question is basically, we're going to send out a prompt, basically letting the user know what we want them to do. And then it'll sit there and wait until the user puts in the information, and it'll return it to this value here. All right. So what I want to put in here is the question we want to ask them. So basically, we're just going to say it's, and then I'm using backticks here, right? So these backticks are the same key as the tilde key is underneath the escape key. And this is going to allow me to put variables in line in my strings. So you do that by using the syntax here. Use a $ and then open and closing curly braces. And then inside of the curly braces is where you put your variable. So I want to use player here. So we're going to say it's player turn. All right. And then I'm going to put a new line. That's what this \n is. Then I'll say select a position or type Q to quit. All right. And then I'll do another \n. I'll put a period there. All right. So what's going to happen here is we're going to draw the board. We're going to put this out to the screen so the user knows what to do. And they'll know to select the position, which has been shown on the board. And then we'll wait for it and we'll get this value back once they actually type in something. So now we're not going to just use this value. Whenever you get input from a user, you never just want to take that value and try to process it. You want to validate that value. Okay. So that's why I have this separate input here. So this input variable is going to hold the validated value that came from the user. So this is the raw input from the user. We never want to process that. We want to validate what they put in to make sure it is a value that we can actually use, you know? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to first check to see if it's Q. So we'll say if val is Q, then we're just going to exit because they want to quit. So we'll say process.exit. And this will just quit the program because they obviously don't want to play anymore. All right. And then the next thing we want to do is validate that we have a real number that we can process. So the first thing I want to check is if the value is a number, because if we come up here and look, all these values are number values. So I understand these values are actually strings and we'll handle that as well, but the string value is a number. All right. So we're going to want to check that. Okay. So we're going to say if is not a number. That's what isNaN means, is not a number. And then we say, and we put in val. Okay. And then we're going to check. So basically we're checking to see if it's not a number, because if it's not a number, we don't want to process it. Okay. And then we also want to check to make sure that if it is a number, it's a number that's between 1 and 9. Okay. So we're going to need to do that. So I'll say number val. So this is basically taking the string number of the value that was passed in and trying to convert it to a number. Since we know at this point that it is a number, because if this is false, then this won't be a number. And we won't even get to this point because this would have failed. So we know that this is a number now. We just need to make sure that this number is less than 1. So because that's what we're checking for. We're checking the negative case here. So the value is less than 1, we don't want to process it. And then we say, or if the number val is greater than 9, then we don't want to process this. Okay. So at this point, inside of this if statement, we know that we got some bad input. All right. So we're going to log out to the user and tell them, hey, you put in bad input. We need a value, a valid number. Okay. So we're going to say console.warn. And then we're going to say, please enter a value between 1 and 9. All right. And that's what we'll tell the user. And then in order to not process this value, we're just going to go back up to the top of the loop. Okay. And the way we do this is we just type continue. Okay. So what's going to happen here is if the value is not a number, or if the value is less than 1 or is greater than 9, then we're going to say, hey, that's not a valid value. That's what we're going to tell them. And then we're just going to go back up to the top of the loop and wait for new input. So we'll draw the board again, and then we're going to sit here. We're going to tell them, hey, it's your turn. Put in some better input. Now that we've handled that case, we need to go ahead and handle the case where we did get a valid value. So we'll say else, because if we get to this point, then we know that the value is between 1 and 9, and it's a number. Okay. So now we just want to go ahead and set our input, because since we know this is valid, we can set input now. So we'll say is input is number val -1. Okay. So the reason we're doing this -1 is because we want the index to our board here. Okay. So as we can see, if we look at our values here, this 1 is in index position 0. This 2 is at index position 1. So we need to subtract 1 to actually get the index value. Okay, so that's why we do this -1 here. All right, and now our input is set with some actual real values that we can process. So now we can go down and set the values. So one thing we need to do before we actually just take this value and set it on one of these positions is we need to make sure that that position isn't already taken. So let's say X hits 4, right? And now it's set to 4. So when it's O's turn, we don't want O to be able to say, I want to set it to 4 because 4 is already taken. So we need to make sure that it's not already taken before we set the value, okay? So let's go down here and do that check. So this check is pretty straightforward. We're just going to say if board input, all right, because input is the index. So we'll say if board input is equal to X, or if board input is equal to Y, then we just want to continue, okay? Because basically we're saying, okay, this is already an actual person's value. You're not going to be able to, in Tic Tac Toe, you can't take somebody's place off the board. You have to take a place that hasn't already been taken, okay? So that's what this is going to check. If the place is already taken, then just go back up to the top and wait for some new input from the user, okay? Next, we want to, if we get past this check and we know that it's an actual, the place isn't taken, then we can go ahead and set it. So we'll say board input equals player, all right? Because remember, player is X or no, all right? So we set it to the player. And then now, once we set that value, we need to check to see if they won or not, because after each time somebody plays something, we need to know if they won. So if we have an X here and then an X here, all right, and then it's the X's player turn again, and they go here, we know that they won because they have 3 in a row. Each time somebody puts something down, we need to make sure that they haven't won the game yet. All right. So we go here, we set the board to player, and then now we need to we're gonna create a new function called isWinner. Okay. So and then it'll just take in the input. So this isWinner function is going to be a recursive function that's basically going to check if the winner is there. All right. So let me draw this out one more time so I can explain it. All right. So we got this here. And if we, what's going to happen is isWinner is going to start at a spot. Like just say we had, we started here and say this was an X. isWinner is going to say, okay, we're here. And then we're going to check this way. Is that an X? No, it's not. So we didn't win that way. Then it's going to check down. Is this an X? No, it's not. So we didn't win that way. And it's going to go here, try to check diagonal. It's going to say, is this an X? It's going to say no. So we didn't win. And this will return false. All right. But in the case where it's like this, what's going to happen is we're going to say, we got X here. Then we have X here. Is that X? No. So we'll stop. And then we're going to try this way. Is that X? No. Then we'll stop. And then we'll try this way. Is that an X? Yes. So then it'll recurse again and go down the same direction that it's going and say, oh, is that an X? Yes. All right. So they won. All right. If that didn't make sense, I'll explain it as we're writing the code for it. All right. So basically what happens is we're going to go here. Once this is right, if this is true and we found a winner, then we'll do winner stuff. But if this is wrong, like if the person hasn't won, then we're just going to switch turns. So we'll change is X turn and we're going to set it to not is X turn. All right. So basically, if you're not familiar with this syntax, it's just going to toggle if it's X turn. So if it's X turn now, there's going to be not X's turn next time. And if it's not X's turn now, then it'll be X's turn next time. That's all this is doing. It's just flip-flopping it back and forth. So each time a turn is over, we change to the other person's turn. That's what this is going to do. So let's write this function for isWinner. All right, so I'm just going to go right underneath our start function, which is up here. We're going to go right under the start function, and we're going to create this isWinner function. So we're going to say function isWinner, and then isWinner is going to take the current position. It's going to take the vector, and the vector is going to be set to 0, 0 to start. And then it's going to also take the count. Okay, so let me explain what these parameters are. So the current is basically where we are now on the board. So we're starting from here. The vector is basically the direction we're going. So you remember how in my example, we were in the top left corner and I said we're going to check to the right, and then we're going to check down, and we're going to check down diagonally. So this is that direction. It's which way are we checking, so that we know which way to go to see if we won or not. Okay. And then this count is basically how many letters have we run into. If we're X, how many X's have we counted in a row? All right. And that's all the count is. It just keeps track of that, so that when we get to 3 in a row, we know that we won. All right. So let's go ahead and write this function. The first thing I'm going to need for this isWinner is I'm going to need the position of the X and the Y, because let me explain this again. So we got 1, 2, 3, we got 4, 5, 6, and then we got 7, 8, 9. All right, so when we're checking, we're going to need these positions. So this will be like, it's going to be like a coordinate system. So this is 0, 0. This is 1, 0. This is 2, 0. All right, so that's what we're going to need. We need the X and the Y position. That's what I mean by that. And then we're also going to need the index that's in the board. So the coordinate position for this 5 is 1, 1, right? But the index is going to be 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the index is going to be 4. Okay. So we need to get the index, and then we also need to get the X and the Y. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That way we can move around right with the vectors and everything the way we're going to do it. Okay. So let me get the X. So const X is going to be current mod 3. And then the Y is going to be math.floor current divided by 3. All right. And then the index is going to be board index. And then we'll do Y plus vec1, which is this guy. And then we'll multiply that by 3. And then we'll add X plus vec0. Vec0 is going to be this guy, whatever it is at the time. All right. And then we're going to need to make sure that the value is valid. Okay. So we're going to say if board index is less than 0, or board index is greater than 8, then we know that this isn't even a valid square, because we're off the board. It'll be like in the case of the coordinates, it'll be like -1, -1 or something. That's not even on the board. So we know that these aren't valid values. So we'll skip over that. We'll just say, yeah, this one is false. All right. So now we need to check if board index is equal to the current that we just passed in. So what happens is when you first call this, board index will equal current, because that's the first place we're starting off at. And then once we start moving in our vector direction, then they won't be the same. Okay. But to start off with, it's always going to be the same. And then this is where we actually start trying our different directions. Okay. So we're going to say board index equals current. And then this is where we'll try our different directions. I'm going to copy and paste these in, because there's like 8. I think there's like 8 of them. It's like 8 different directions. So there should be 8 of these. And I'll explain them right now so you can understand what's actually happening here. So if this is our first time calling this, then that means we're on the first one. which means we need to actually start picking different directions to go to see if we won or not. All right. So if this is true, this is the first one. We know that we're at 1. Okay. That's why the count is 1. And then we're going to try to go to the left and up. Okay. And then we'll recursively call it that way. If we go that way and we get to, if the count gets to 3 when we go that way, then we won. All right. And that's why we say if is winner, if it comes back as true, we want to return true that we won. But if it comes back as false, we don't want to return anything. We just want to go on to the next if statement so we can try the next one. All right. That's why we're not directly returning is winner here, because we don't want it if it's false. If it's false, we just want to go try the next one. All right. The next direction. So that's what we're doing here. We're trying all the different directions. And if we win in one of these directions, we return true. We won. But if all of these end up being false, which means we didn't win, none of the directions have 3 in a row, then we're going to need to do something else. So we'll say else. If you need to, you can pause the video and copy these down. You really only just need to write one. And then the only thing that's changing is the direction that you're going. Okay. So if, and this, what this is handling is the case, the first case. So if board index equals current. All right. So once we get to the next, like the next direction or whatever, right? Once we go to the next one, this will no longer be true. So we need to handle that case. Okay. So, we're going to create an else block, and then we're going to say if board, and then we're going to put in board index is equal to board current. Then we want to handle this case. So what's happening here is first we're checking to see if it's the first. If it's not, then we're going to check to see if the one that we're on, if the square that we're on is the same. So basically we're saying, okay, if this is an X and the original was an X, then we're good to go. Keep going. All right. But if it's not, then we're just going to return false from here. Okay. So let's handle this case first. So if it is the same, so both of these are X's, then we're going to want to add 1 to the count. And then we're going to want to recursively call the function. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to say const new count is equal to count plus 1. All right. So if the count was 1 before, and we just checked to see that this next one is also the same letter, then we're going to add 1 to the count and we get this new count. Once we get this new count, we need to check to see if that new count is equal to 3, because if it's equal to 3, there's no reason to even recursively call anymore. We know we just won. So let's do that check. We'll say if new count is equal to 3, then we're going to return true because we just won. We know is winner is true. All right. Otherwise, we're going to return is winner. So we're going to recursively call this again with our index, our same vector, because we're still going the same direction, and then a new count. All right. So that would do that. Now, if both of these are false, then we just want to return false. I don't really see a case where that's true, but we're going to throw it down here. All right. So this will be our algorithm for, I'm going to close this so you can see the whole thing. This is our algorithm for figuring out if we have a winner or not. Okay. So now we're going to go back up here to is winner, or at least to where we're calling is winner. And then we're going to do our winner stuff. So if we have a winner, if somebody wins, we're going to redraw the board, because remember, we only redraw the board at the top of the loop. Since we're not going all the way back up to the top of the loop, we want to actually show the winning combination. Okay. So we're going to still redraw the board. So we'll call draw board. And then the next thing we want to do is notify the user that they won. All right. So we're going to say console.log. And then I'm going to use backticks here. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to use the syntax again and say player. And then I'm going to say has won. And then we're going to throw an exclamation point in there. And then we're going to say, we're going to take some input from the user. Basically, we told them that they've won, but now we want to ask them what they want to do. Do they want to quit or do they want to restart the game? All right, and play a different time. All right. So what we're going to do is the same thing we did earlier, where we are awaiting a new promise. All right, and then we're going to have resolve again. And then in this function, we're going to say r1.question once again. And then we're going to say type Q to quit. And then we're going to say type any other key to play again. And then I'll do \n. And then remember, we need to resolve here as a parameter. And there we go. All right. So now we're going to wait for input from the user. Okay. So this value here is going to come out, and then we need to check to see if it's Q. So we're going to say if val is Q. So we're doing exactly what we did before. If it is, we're going to process .exit. All right. And then if it's anything else, if it's not Q, we're going to restart. So we're not even going to validate anything else with this value. If it's not Q, we're restarting. They could type anything they want. If it's not Q, we're restarting. All right. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to loop through all these spaces in our board and reset them to the numbers like how we have here. Okay. So we're going to say let I in board, and then we're going to set the board value. So board I is going to be number I, and then we'll +1. All right. So we'll set the board back. That's how we reset the board, and then we'll hit continue. So the reason we're hitting continue here is because we don't want to flip the whose turn it is. We want the winner to have the first turn. Okay. So if O wins, we want O to go first. If X wins, we want X to go first. So we're going to continue here. So we just skip over this last line and go back up here to the top. All right. And then at this point, I think we're done. There's really nothing else to do here but to test it out. So I'm going to save, and then I'm going to open the terminal by hitting Control and tilde. All right. And then I'm going to type in node game.js. All right. And this will run our game. So it ran it. We're not seeing the information getting printed out down here. So that is an issue. So I'm going to exit by hitting Control C. And I'm going to go take a look and see why we're not seeing this get printed. Oh, here. So when we asked the question, right, I forgot to put resolve as the second parameter here, which it should have been. All right. So if you missed that, go ahead and correct that. And then let's go back and try again. Node game.js. And here we go. Now we see it's X's turn. It says select a position or type Q to quit. Let's type Q just to make sure it works. We type Q, it exits. Perfect. Let's restart. And now let's select 1. So it's X's turn. We select 1. We hit enter. And as we can see, 1 changed to X. All right. Now it's O's turn. You see how that changed? It's O's turn now. So I'm going to type 4. All right. So now 4 is O. It's X's turn again. I'll type 7. We're going to let O win this time. So I'm just going to, go until O wins. And then I'll do 6. So now, as you can see, O has 3 in a row. It says O has 1. It says type Q to quit. It says type any other key to play again. So let's just type something in. Let's say hello world. We hit enter and it resets the game, as you can see. So everything's reset. It's still O's turn because remember O won. And it resets to being O's turn. If I hit 5, we see O plays. All right, and then let's let X win this time. 7, 6, 4, 9. And as we can see, X has 1, and it says the same thing. This time I'm going to hit Q, and we quit. All right, so that's it. As you can see, it works just fine. We're playing Tic Tac Toe on the terminal. All right. So we're going to, in the next video, we're going to take this code and split it up and actually make an API out of it on the back end. And then we're going to write a front end that connects to that back end API and allows you to play Tic Tac Toe. So we're going to create, you know, an HTML file with like buttons or something that you can click to set the X's and O's and everything. And we'll have a restart button and everything like that. All right. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel and all that jazz. And I'll see you guys in the next video.